Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. First off, I just want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and supporting the channel. Whether you're working late, driving through the back roads, or just looking for something to keep your mind off the dark, I appreciate you being here. Now listen, if you've had a Dogman encounter or anything strange that's happened to you, and you want to share it here on the channel, I would love to hear your story. Don't worry about how polished it is, just send it my way. I want to hear it. My email address is linked in the description below this video. Tonight's upload features multiple, terrifying, and unforgettable encounters. You're going to want to listen all the way to the end. Trust me. Some of these, probably most of these, have never been told publicly until now. Everyone lock in, and let's begin. Grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. You guys may recognize this first submitter. The Reverend has returned as promised with his fourth encounter. He says he has more. I'll be waiting to hear from him in the future. Thanks, buddy. Hey, ya reels. I promised to give you all my encounters in chronological order, and here's my fourth. This takes place a little over a year after Josh died, and in that time, I had a lot of anger built up and a lot of grief. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in the spring of 1999 after my high school graduation. As I was waiting for my ship-out date, I decided to pay homage to my buddy and go walk the woods by my area. As I've stated before, I live in northwest Georgia, and there's a forest reserve nearby, the Paulding National Forest and Reserve, located between Dallas, Georgia and Rockmart, Georgia. It's a couple 100 acres of forestry that are tranquil, and it's the place I usually go to clear my head, which needed doing at this time. I made the short trip out to the parking area off 278 and walked into the woods at my usual spot. Hunting is illegal in forest reserves, so I didn't even bring a gun with me. I did bring my Bowie knife, though, my way of bringing Josh and his dad along with me. I walked into the woods taking in the smells and the energy of the forest, something that has always brought me peace. Even though that peace was shattered a year ago, something about being feral, the wildness, never leaves. Roughly an hour into my walk, I heard ahead of me the sounds of a bear. We have a few black bears and some timber wolves, and they've been introduced into the area not long before this time. The bear sounded furious, like it was fighting with something. Not wanting to be part of that fight, I changed course, sharply turned to my right, and continued walking. Not long afterward, I heard the battle behind me coming to an end with a sound that has woken me up every night for the past year. That loud, part growl, part roar, and the bear's, I guess, growl was cut short. In the sudden quiet, I noticed it, the silence. The whole forest had stopped making any noises, as if someone hit the mute button. My stomach dropped. I knew what this was now. While fear never crept in, the feeling of me not making it out of this forest did. I turned right again, this time walking briskly toward the area where I'd parked. I noticed the time now, 5:45 p.m. Sunset was in an hour, and the forest was already darker than anywhere else. What hit me first was the smell, rotted meat and fresh blood. Next came the low growl that vibrated my spine. I stopped and slowly turned around. It was standing there, not but 50 feet away, looking dead at me. I'd estimate him to be roughly 7 feet tall on his hind legs, arms reaching his knees, claws well over 5 inches long, twitching. His fur was black, covering from his head down along his back and tufts on his thighs. Dark gray skin, rippling with corded muscle and tendons built for speed. The only weapon I had was my knife, but I knew close quarters combat was how I would die here. His black eyes just continued to bore into my soul. I felt the violation within. All I could do was slowly step back. My eyes never left his face. I know better than to look into the eyes of a predator. So I concentrated on his mouth. Not any better of a view, but it wasn't his eyes. I continued to slowly walk backwards while I whispered to myself, "And you, guide me." Something had shifted with the Dogman. It started forward, hunching slightly toward me, when a sound broke out from behind him. Growls and barks were coming from where he and the bear had been fighting, which made the Dogman turn. He let out a snarl, then turned and disappeared into the thicket toward the sounds. I broke into a hard run toward my truck as fast as I could. I still had about 200 yards to go before reaching it, and I was hoping I could get there before the Dogman finished his business. After a few minutes, my luck had run out. I heard crashing about 50 yards behind me and closing. Using the trees to bound myself forward faster, I bolted over logs, rocks, and bushes in my path. For a second, the feral spirit within me was free. I dared not look behind me the whole time, knowing my luck I'd crash face first into a tree and it'd be over. My truck came into view just as the Dogman got close enough for me to see in the reflection of my glasses. I grabbed my tailgate, allowing me to make a 90-degree turn at high speed, and when I did, the Dogman bolted past me into the highway. I jumped into my truck, and just before the Dogman could get his footing, another pickup came speeding along and hit the Dogman, sending it into the median. The guy slammed on his brakes, but I was shouting at him to go now. I started my truck and punched it, following the guy in the red truck. I noticed he had stopped at a nearby gas station, and I did too. After calming him down, I let him know what it was, and that going back was unwise. He didn't argue with me about what it was, nor did he look at me like I was crazy. He just nodded, that nod of, "Yep, it happens." He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Glad you're all right," and he left. I felt like I'd had enough excitement for one day, so I headed back after that. Getting to the area where we'd come out, I saw the Dogman get up and go back into the forest, favoring his right side and limping. He didn't look back, and I didn't slow down. I only broke my silence once on the way home. He whispered, "Thanks again, Josh." I didn't speak about it upon getting home or ever again until now. At this point, I started doing research on these things. Seeing as how I'm somewhat of a Dogman magnet, I want to know what the hell I'm attracting. So much secrecy involving these creatures. So many wild conspiracy theories. Silver hurts them. Fear drives them. They're everywhere. And they are as intelligent as they are hard to kill. But for some unknown reason, I cannot get away from them. Stay safe, brother. The Reverend. Hey, Reels. My encounters aren't much, but I thought I'd share them anyway. I drive an 18-wheeler for a living, formerly OTR, now local ag. About 8 or 9 years ago, I had a student with me at the time. I was what we drivers call swinging beef. For those who don't know, it's a reefer hauling meat specifically. Anyway, we had a load to pick up at the meat plant in Plainwell, Michigan. It's winter, so it's dark out earlier. We pull in, check in, and were told that we had to call their off-site trailer washout guy to wash our trailer before coming in for our load. No problem. I called the guy, and he gave me directions to his place. To put the landscape into perspective, it's both heavily wooded in spots, mixed with fields. The houses are sprinkled in sporadically. Anyway, we pulled out of the gate, turning left, and my headlights illuminated the brush across the street. As they lit up the 4 to 5 foot overgrown field, something huge and gray stood up, then crouched back down. It had to be 9 to 10 feet tall. It was wide and bulky at the shoulders. The head had a mane of sorts, but we only saw it from the back. Just like that, it was gone. We saw it, and I started saying WTF was that, repeatedly. My student's eyes were wide and her mouth was gaping open. I asked if she saw it. She said she had and thought she was seeing things until I started freaking out. We went slow, looking at where it was, and it was just gone. Don't ask me how, but there was no sign of it. The kicker is, not even 20 feet past that was a guy standing there checking his mail. His house was surrounded by trees, and he was oblivious to this thing's clearly stalking him. We got to the washout location. We asked the guy what kind of stuff they have running around in these woods, and told him what we saw. He told us some guy over there had exotic pets, and one probably got out. Not any that stand 10 feet tall, dude. I tried looking up cryptid sightings in Kalamazoo County, Michigan, and Bigfoot popped up. So we were thinking it's Bigfoot. But since getting into all of the Dogman and Bigfoot videos that I do, no way can Bigfoot just crouch back down and disappear like that. Dogman can. My second sighting was about 6 years ago. I was a night driver on a dedicated run to Gainesville, Georgia. My coworker and I would meet our relays in Pioneer, Tennessee, and take it to Gainesville. He and I were on the phone talking crap to each other like always to keep each other alert while running. I was on I-75 South, around the Sweetwater, Tennessee exit. It's around 3 a.m. and my lights illuminated something in the median trying to cross the road. It was huge and black. I flipped my high beams on, and it looked like a bear with mange. I'm slowing down looking at it and telling my coworker about it. When I got about 100 feet from it, this damn thing stood up. Holy shit, that ain't a bear. That's a freaking werewolf. My buddy asked me if I was smoking crack. I told him no, because he didn't give me any when he met his relay. We really don't, but truckers crack jokes like that constantly. I told him I was dead serious, though. He still doesn't believe me to this day, but I know what I saw. Probably 8 feet or so, black, red eyes, arms hanging down past its knees. It was hunched over some, legs like a dog. I didn't look at it long enough to check for a tail, hands, or claws, but it had a big row of teeth, way too big to be a bear's. That was enough for me to see. I put the hammer down and got the hell on my way. Nope, not trying to play around with that thing. Well, thanks, Reels. Keep doing what you're doing. I don't get to press the like button often because I stream your videos while driving. Thanks. And I received a second email with additional information. Hey, Reels. I wanted to add a tiny bit more. I had slowed down to about 55 or 60 miles per hour in case that thing ran out in front of me. I didn't want to wreck, and I wanted the extra time to react if it did. The closest thing I could find that resembles it is the artwork cover for American Werewolf in London. It's not exact, but pretty freaking close. When it stood up and looked at me while I was passing it, I saw those red eyes, and that mouth full of sharp teeth that were too big to even fit inside its mouth. And well, that's all she wrote. It put the fear of God in me, and I hightailed it out of there as fast as my truck would allow. Luckily, my load was only 24,000 pounds, so I could get back up to speed a little quicker than if I'd been fully loaded. I'm honestly surprised I didn't need to change my clothes afterward. Words cannot describe the amount of fear that came over me. Oh, in the first encounter, I forgot to say the gray, hairy thing stood up. I'm sure you got the gist, though. I still don't know if it was a Bigfoot or a Dogman. Maybe it was laying in the brush and I just couldn't see it from the driver's seat, since the spot it was at was off my passenger side. My passenger student said she didn't see it either. Feel free to contact me for any clarification. Thanks. T.S. Hey, Reels. I've been listening to your channel for a while now. I definitely think you have the best channel out there, and it's good to continue to see you grow. Here's my encounter. You can use the initials JS3 for my identity, if you don't mind. My encounter happened when I was around 10 to 12 years old in Harford County, Maryland. My uncle had built his own house on a pretty sizable amount of land, and the closest home was about 6 to 7 miles away in either direction. Up there, it's nothing but cornfields and woods. Being a young city kid from Baltimore, I thoroughly enjoyed getting out of the city and going to see my uncle and my cousins on the weekends with my father. My cousins and I would go down to the creek, probably half a mile behind the house, through this heavily wooded trail to catch crawdads, build dams, forts, etc., just being normal kids. One early evening as the sun was starting to set, my cousins dared me to go down to the creek just before dark. They didn't think a city boy could do it. My father and uncle were always very adamant that when y'all go out, you go together. I guess you could say it was peer pressure or the young kid in me wanting to look cool and show off for my cousins. For context, directly behind my uncle's house was a large garden and a small barn where he kept chickens and grew his own vegetables. My cousins were going to wait at the barn while I took the path down to the creek. Once I got to the point where I could no longer see the house through the woods behind me, the woods went completely silent, and I felt this tremendous amount of fear, like I was being watched. I'm getting chills writing this part down. I kept walking and made it to the bank of the creek. And for the proof that I went all the way, I reached down from the bank to see if I could find a crawdad or anything to bring back. I decided to go with a really smooth rock and call it a day. Mission success, right? Wrong. There was still no noise, only the sounds of the creek and that primal fear that you are prey or being stalked. I heard a crack to my right, across the creek in the thick brush. I saw a dark brown thing with two glowing amber eyes staring at me from within. I froze completely. I couldn't move. It didn't move either. It just stared at me, not even blinking. I got what I now tag as the feeling of I'm the predator and you are the prey. I can get you at any moment I want. I felt powerless, completely frozen, vulnerable. The thing wasn't moving, it was just staring. What finally broke the silence was my father yelling my name from up the hill toward the house, and that finally snapped me out of it. I booked it, didn't even look back. I was imagining what it was reaching out and grabbing me just before I made it back to the house. My cousins, uncle, and father were all looking at me, gasping, saying I was white as a ghost when I made it back to them. They were asking what happened, and I just couldn't speak or say anything other than, when are we going back to the city? I didn't want my family to think I was crazy, or my cousins to make fun of me and say a city boy couldn't handle the woods, so I held it all in. Later that night, when things had calmed down, my father and uncle were murmuring about something and said, I think it's best you boys sleep upstairs tonight. Normally, we'd sleep in the living room, which was connected to the back deck, overlooking the barn and the trail to the creek. My cousins were bummed out, losing the N64 and the big screen TV. I was just quiet. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could see and feel were those eyes staring at me. I was awake all night, and at the break of dawn, I was just staring out the window on the second floor at the tree line, and that's when I saw it, full view. I smacked myself in the face and shook my closest cousin to try to wake him up. It had very long arms, a dog's head like a German shepherd or a Doberman, ears perked back. It was crawling on all fours like it was trying to be as low to the ground as possible, trying to remain hidden. It was crawling up toward the barn like it was ready to pounce. I put my hand up against the window and started knocking, and this thing's head snapped and looked straight up at me. I saw it snarl and show its teeth. I saw its eyes squint in anger or frustration, and I felt that same fear I'd felt down by the creek. It then snapped down to the lower level of the house, where the sliding glass door and the deck were, and loped off into the tree line quickly. I see my father and uncle on the deck with rifles aimed at the trees, and my father taking off his hat, shaking his head. That entire drive back to the city later that day was silent. We left before dark. My uncle ended up selling the property shortly after, and they all gave up the country life and moved to the city. No one talks about what happened. I guess it's pride, or none of us guys wanting to be labeled the crazy one in the family. But I know they saw it too. There's something in those woods, and it's definitely a predator. Thank you for letting me share and finally get some closure. It's nice to finally get this out. I still don't feel right going into the woods, and I always have that feeling like I'm being watched from the tree line. It just left me with questions. What was it doing creeping up to the place in the early morning? Was it going to attack? Why didn't it charge me? Sorry for the novel. I was just trying to include as much detail as possible. Thank you again, brother. Keep up the good work, and keep being a safe haven for us to share. JS3. Reels. So look, when you replied to my email after I told you I had a very strange encounter to tell, and let me know if you wanted it, well, you asked for it. Here it is. I haven't told anybody everything, honestly. My brother is my closest friend, and I've never even told him all of it. But I figured with all the weird stuff I've heard on this channel and the acceptance of you and all the listeners, maybe this is finally the right place for it. This happened probably 10 or 12 years ago. Me and my buddy Wade used to go out hiking all the time. We tried to go as remote as possible. This was out near the Red River Gorge area, deep into one of the lesser used trails. We'd gone a few miles in, just a long day hike, making a loop. The weather was perfect. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. Out of nowhere, we come across this little cabin in the middle of the woods. No reason for this thing to be there. Never heard of it before. I'm talking like one room. This thing was maybe 12 by 12. I'd never seen it before. And I swear we'd taken this trail dozens of times. There was no trail leading to it. It was just sitting there tucked off to the side, barely visible behind some trees. The door was wide open, and neither of us felt right about it. But we were curious, and you would have been too. So we stepped inside. It was completely empty, except for a single wooden chair sitting dead center in the room. Right in front of the chair on the floor was this perfect black circle burned into the wood. It wasn't just charred. It was like laser etched or something. A perfect symmetrical ring like someone used the floor itself as a fire pit or a ritual spot. No ashes, no smoke marks on the walls, just that one spot. We didn't know what to make of it. Wade joked that it was some kind of sacrifice circle or an alien teleport pad or something. I laughed, but my gut still didn't feel great about it. We didn't stay long. Right as we stepped back, next to the door, almost onto the porch, boom, this flash of bright blue light lit up the entire woods. It happened so fast we barely had time to react. We just stood there frozen, peeking out toward the trees, and that's when we realized something was wrong. There were squirrels up in the branches and a couple deer out on the ridge, but they weren't moving, not a twitch. Just standing there like mannequins. No wind, no noise, nothing. Right then, we started hearing movement off to our left. Something walking. Slow, steady steps through the leaves. It sounded like a person. That's what threw me off. No four-legged gallop. It sounded like boots. And then it stepped out of the trees. I don't even know what to call it. Man-sized? No, way bigger. This thing had to be 8 to 9 feet tall. Now, it was shaped like a man, I will say that, but it definitely wasn't one. It had thick black fur across most of its body, but it was kind of thinner around the chest, neck, and arms. It was like the hair there had worn thin. The posture was weirdly human. The arms hung longer than ours would, but they were still shaped like arms. And it had actual hands, huge hands, with claws. The legs weren't bent like a dog, they were straight like ours. Its face looked like a damn Doberman, long snout, perked ears, and these glowing deep blue eyes. And brother, this was not eyeshine. It was broad daylight. These things were glowing. And before I forget to add, no, it did not have a tail. It walked slowly past the cabin from left to right. We just stood there behind the doorway, barely breathing. For no apparent reason at all, it just stopped. I know it didn't hear us because we didn't make a sound, but it did stop right in front of us. It slowly turned its head and looked dead at us. Not just a glance, this thing focused on us. Its eyes, I saw them narrow. I remember that detail so clearly. This thing looked so evil. I would say demonic. Then it started growling, low, mean, and it began snapping its jaws together. We could hear the sound of its teeth clacking. We dropped back inside that shack so fast we almost fell over each other. We did slam that door shut, what little cover that would provide, 'cause it was old and you could probably punch through it with your bare hand. We just backed up against the walls on either side of the door, praying it wouldn't come in. We had nowhere else to go. I'm telling you, I've never been that scared. That wasn't regular fear, that was some kind of raw, paralyzing terror. We waited. It kept walking, circling to the right, and then eventually, nothing. Back to the silence. We peeked out, and those deer and squirrels were still frozen in the same exact spots. We didn't understand what was happening. And then another flash of blue light. This one was even brighter. It hurt. Made us wince and look away. And the second we looked back up, all the animals were gone. They ran. It was like someone hit fast forward on a paused video. That was our cue to get the hell out. We followed the exact same path back. Didn't stop for water breaks. Didn't say a word. Hours later, once we got back to cell service, we called it in. We came back with 2 rangers. But here's the part that still doesn't make sense. When we got back to that same exact spot, there was no cabin. And I know this was the same spot. There wasn't a wall, a board, not even a clearing, just underbrush and trees, untouched, like nothing had ever been there. The rangers didn't say much, they gave us that polite smirk. But something about the way one of them kept scanning the trees made me think maybe they had heard stories before, or maybe seen it themselves. Later on, I found out there are, in fact, rumors among locals about a cabin that appears and disappears in different spots on that mountain. Some folks have seen it, some haven't. Some say it moves around like a ghost or something. But the part that nobody ever talks about is what we saw walk past it. I've told a couple of people over the years, and they seem halfway on board until I get to the Dogman part. Then they check out, so I just stop. That's why I say most people have never heard all of it, because they don't want to hear it. They don't have an open mind. They just immediately dismiss it. I'm not asking anyone to believe it, really. Hell, I wouldn't believe it if it hadn't happened to me. We've gone back out there maybe 6 or 7 times since then. Same general area. Never saw the cabin again. Never felt that presence again either, thank God. I don't know what these things are, or how that cabin fits into it, or if it even does. But maybe someone listening will. If anybody has any thoughts or theories of what was going on here, I'm all ears. Because after all these years, I still don't have any answers at all. Thank you, Reels. D. C. Friends, legends, family. That's going to do it for tonight's upload. If you made it all the way to the end, I want to thank you tremendously. These encounters you heard tonight came straight from the people who live them. Folks who've carried this stuff for years. In some cases, many years. And they finally decided to speak up. To all these people, anyone else out there still holding on to a story, you are not alone. And like I always say, if something's happened to you, strange, unexplained, terrifying, dogman or otherwise, send it in. I'd be honored to share it here on the channel. My email is in the description. As always, again, thank you to the people who sent in these encounters. You guys are absolute legends, and it takes a lot of backbone to come forward and share this type of encounter. The channel would not exist without you guys, and especially all of you that are here listening. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the channel. And thank you for keeping this wonderful community we've built alive. Stay safe out there, everyone. Stay sharp. Stay alert. Stay alive. I love each and every one of you. And until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.